Hello again. Today we're going to be discussing citizenship or grant of citizenship for adults. This means that you are not a Canadian-born citizen and you have no parents who are Canadian citizens and have therefore complied with the residency obligations of a permanent resident along with other important factors and wish to apply for your citizenship in Canada. There's a few factors to consider, which are age, your permanent resident status, the time that you've lived in Canada, your language skills, any prohibitions or inadmissibilities such as criminality, as well as how well you know Canada. So first off, in order to be eligible to apply for a grant of citizenship, you must be at least 18 years of age at the time of applying. From there, you must also have been a permanent resident in Canada. This means that for 3 out of the last 5 years, you have maintained your permanent resident status in Canada. Along with that comes the residency obligation of the citizenship application. Now, a couple of things to know about this. Unlike the permanent resident status of a Canadian permanent resident, there are no considerations when it comes to citizenship, in the sense that you must have been physically present in Canada for the last 1,095 days in order to be eligible. When it comes to permanent residents, they take into account travel for a Canadian business, if you're traveling with a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, and other such factors when assessing the residency obligation. But when it comes to citizenship, it's very cut and dry. You have to, again, be in Canada, have been in Canada for at least 1,095 days in order to qualify, no questions asked. Your language skills, which is another factor. If you're over the age of 65, you're required to submit proof of an original language test completed, demonstrating that you meet the necessary language ability in order to become a Canadian citizen. Now, one of the reasons they enforce this is to make sure that as a new Canadian citizen, you have the language skills and language ability to prosper in Canada, to adapt to life in Canada, to function in Canadian society. Which is why, as I said, the English test is, or French in some cases, the language test is required. Again, so that you're able to fit into Canada and Canadian life. Finally, if you have graduated from a Canadian university or college, the language test is not required, as obviously, if you're able to graduate from a Canadian university or college, it's natural to assume that you have the necessary language skills. At the same time, for those who are over the age of 65, the language test does not apply to you, and that you can disregard. Any prohibition, so for example, if you have any previous criminality, you may be barred from applying for Canadian citizenship until either a pardon is issued in your favor or the aspects or the sentencing of your criminality has been resolved, whatever the case might be. Many times this can risk your permanent resident status, and at the same time, as I mentioned, certainly affects the citizenship application. Finally, how well you know Canada, another factor of the citizenship application, is once you've submitted the application, you'll be required to go for a citizenship test, which involves lengthy questions about Canadian history, life in Canada, what are the responsibilities and obligations of a Canadian citizen, and things of this nature. There's also a book that you can obtain from CIC that will help you prepare for this exam. If you pass the exam, you are sworn in as a Canadian citizen and have essentially reached the end of the immigration road, in the sense that there's nothing else for you to do. You've now obtained the final step of immigration. You're a citizen. You have all the rights and responsibilities of one. You can travel to and from Canada at will, and you enjoy all the benefits that Canada has to offer. So that's citizenship in a nutshell, everything summed up for you. Again, the factors to consider would be your age, the language requirements, any prohibitions, how well you know Canada, and the fact that you've maintained the residency obligation, which again is the most important, or one of the most important factors, meeting that 1,095 days. So I hope you found this helpful, and feel free to check out one of our many other informative videos. Thanks so much for your time.